Mumbai has witnessed a tragedy of this proportion after many years, where 14 people have been killed in one stroke, and there is a very, very strong apprehension that there are more people still trapped under that debris in Mumbai. It's been 2 days since then, but there has been no arrest yet. One person, the ad agency owner, has been named as main accused in the case, but that's the reaction of the authorities each and every time. Who are the people? Let's look at the larger questions. Besides that one guy who is the clear sitting duck in a way who the police have to arrest, but who are the people who allowed this illegal hoarding and several other illegal hoardings like this? In fact, our reporters went yesterday and saw at the same spot there were 3 other such illegal hoardings standing tall still. Why were structural audits not done on time, which the Mumbai civic body chief himself is now saying that it's mandatory to do an audit every 2 years? The Mumbai civic body was aware of this illegal hoarding. Why did they choose to turn a blind eye? That led to the death of 14 innocent people. And now that a case of culpable homicide has been filed, why is no government official named in the FIR? Why is there no action taken on all the agencies involved which jointly allowed this daylight murder to take place? Now, the BMC is conducting an audit, and they have also shifted the owners directly to the railways, asking them to remove hoardings which are taller than 40 feet. But why wasn't this done earlier? These are some of the questions which we'll be looking at tonight. But first, take a look at a report which brings us a comprehensive understanding of the story so far.
At the Ghatkopar hoarding collapse site. Over 48 hours after the catastrophic accident, reports suggest the death toll has climbed to 60. Though rescue agencies are yet to confirm the retrieval of the 2 bodies, rescue teams are still working round the clock to remove debris. NDRF says all efforts are being made to rescue those who are still possibly trapped. The fact that the crash site is a petrol pump is complicating and slowing down the rescue efforts.
हर जगह पेट्रोल है, तो हम लोग जो बाकी इक्विपमेंट्स है, कटिंग इक्विपमेंट जिससे चिंगारी निकलती है, वो हम लोग यूज़ ही नहीं कर पा रहे हैं। गैस कटर से हम लोग कट कर रहे हैं क्योंकि उससे चिंगारी नहीं निकलती है, तो जो जहां हमें कट करना है वही हम लोग फ्लेम जला रहे हैं और कट कर रहे हैं। अगर ये पूरे गिरडर को, जो होर्डिंग को अगर 100% माने तो हमारा 15% के आसपास का मलबा अभी तक हट गया है।
Several difficulties being faced as there are many equipments they cannot use. As this is a petrol pump and they cannot use inflammable materials, which is why JCB being used, manual gas cutters being used, and several other equipments being used, which are manual by the NDRF and other officials, including fire brigade. Though NDRF, fire brigade, local police, MMRDA and civic officials are doing all they can to clear the debris, it may take another 3 or 4 days for the rescue and relief operations to conclude. With Sunil Singh and video journalist Vijay, this is Radhika Ramaswamy for NDTV.
Right. Before we begin the discussion, let me go across to my colleague Radhika Ramaswamy, who's at that collapse site in Mumbai. Radhika, what is the latest on ground in terms of the rescue operations? Is it still on?
That's right, the search and rescue operation is still going on. NDRF teams, fire brigades, civic officials all at the spot. In fact, the rescue operations are going on behind me. I'm just going to show you the scenes here. This is the debris that you're seeing at the collapse site. In fact, you can see the crushed vehicle right there. One part of rescue operation is already over, which is just about 20%. This is just about 15 to 20% of search operation and clearing of debris that has taken place here. You can see the collapsed hoarding. These are parts and remnants, remains of that collapsed hoarding that you're seeing on a petrol pump. This is that particular petrol pump. One cannot figure that this was in fact a petrol pump. 100 feet hoarding that has fallen is what you're seeing at this point. I can also show you the fire brigade vehicles. The fire brigade vehicles lined up here right outside this particular spot, and right there as well multiple fire brigade officials are at this point working round the clock. In fact, NDRF officials also at the spot but they are behind this particular debris, where they are using JCBs, which we did show in the morning, where they are using cranes to sort of take off the debris from the spot. So the fact remains that 14 people have died, multiple people injured at this point, several rescued, but there is a possibility that more people are stuck under debris. These are the remnants here. A shocking incident that took place 2 days back next to the Eastern Express Highway, where a 100-feet hoarding came crashing down. Once again, I will show you what the situation at this point is. 20% of debris clearing has happened, 80% more work to be done. Of course, NDRF and other officials very, very careful at this point, because this is a petrol pump. They cannot use many equipments because that may, in fact, start a fire. So therefore, multiple equipments cannot be used at this time. And where we are standing, what they had used over the last 2 days were gas cutters, JCBs and multiple cranes that were being used and that are still being used at a different point here. And several onlookers, of course, here who've come here to see the debris and what the collapse site is looking. But this is the situation here. Multiple fire brigade officials, and you can see vehicles crushed here. In fact, just behind that, you will see more vehicles crushed. Just right behind this particular tempo, also you will see multiple vehicles have been crushed under the debris.
Right, Radhika.
So yes, these are the details, these are the scenes here.
Right, Radhika. Yes, clearly there seems to be, there's work going on day and night, 24 hours that the rescue operations, 48 hours rather, that the rescue operations are still on. But we've seen now that the Mumbai civic body is clearly shifting the onus on the railways. Is that another effort in order to cover up for their officials? This proportion of a tragedy which has taken place in Mumbai. Now the civic body is of course asking the railways to take down the hoardings which are not as per the permissible limit, but that is little too late.
Certainly, that is too late at this point. Of course, BMC issuing multiple orders. One, to take down the hoardings that are on railway land. Of course, railway police, in fact, government railway police had given permission for this particular hoarding to be erected here, which is above the permissible limit. The permissible limit is 40 feet. Now, at this point, BMC taking down many such hoardings in the city. BMC issuing notices to GRP, asking them to take down all the hoardings for which they had given permission to. Action, of course, initiated in the form of FIR, not against government officials, not against GRP officials, not against the BMC, but against the owner of this particular ad agency who owned this hoarding. And interestingly and shockingly, that man has multiple cases against him, 23 cases, including a case of rape against him. He had violated multiple BMC and railway rules in the past, yet he managed to get the contract. Who gave the contract? Of course, it is the GRP under the Commissionerate 2021 Commissionerate who gave that particular permission. And of course, BMC, completely washing its hands off, saying that they had no role in it. Although they have the authority to demolish, they did not go ahead and demolish it. So the bigger question is, if BMC knew and they had in fact warned railways before the incident that this has to be taken down, they could have demolished. And why didn't they demolish it is a big question. And of course, why didn't the railway act on it when they knew this was beyond permissible limit, one? And secondly, when the BMC themselves had warned them of it on May 2nd in a notice that was issued to them. So several unanswered questions, but the fact remains none of these officials have been held accountable, except of course the owner of this ad agency.
Exactly. In fact, that storm seems to have blown the lid off a can of worms. Radhika, stay with us as we are also joined by a full Mumbai panel to discuss this further. Justice B.G. Kolse Patil, former judge of the Bombay High Court, joins me on the show. Tara Deshpande, actor and writer, also a resident of Mumbai. Bharat Dabholkar, advertising professional, resident of Mumbai as well. Shaina NC, BJP spokesperson. Sanjay Jha, political analyst. And Dr. Uday Prakash Varunjkar, who has in fact he's a practicing lawyer and has represented petitioners on issues of these illegal billboards in the High Court. Thank you to all of you for joining us on this discussion. But first, I would like to go across to an eminent author, Mr. Amitav Ghosh, who's joining me on the show tonight to discuss this issue, because Mr. Ghosh has, of course, written on on Mumbai and has also commented on this particular tragedy which has struck the city. Mr. Ghosh, in fact, if I can start with asking you about the fact that you said that thousands of billboards that cover Mumbai would turn into projectiles in case of a storm, if a storm hits the city. What did you mean by that?
Oh, I mean, this hadn't happened before, but it's very clear. I mean, you just have to think about it. It's just common sense. Because, cyclonic activity is increasing in the Arabian Sea. Mumbai's also had very narrow misses with a couple of cyclones. And, this storm was not a cyclone. It was just a windstorm. If a major cyclone hits Mumbai, these hoardings are going to create an absolute disaster. And the reason for that, I think you have to try and understand why Mumbai is a special risk, more perhaps even than Delhi Delhi doesn't get cyclones anyway, but Calcutta or Chennai, is because Mumbai has a huge concentration of skyscrapers, and these skyscrapers are glass fronted, and they're all they're squeezed in together. And in the event of a cyclone, they'll just be bombarded with hoardings. Not just hoardings, also with, tin roofs. There all across Mumbai, there are, these roofs, of tin, asbestos, and so on. So, this is going to be a real major problem for Mumbai going ahead in a period of massive climate disruption.
Right, sir. So what is the way forward? What can Mumbai, which is one of the biggest metros in the country and also globally recognized as a big metropolis, what can it learn from global examples?
Mumbai has an incredible concentration of billboards. I mean, they're just all over the place. New York has other problems. I mean, it has, exposed cables of all kinds, which should be buried. I think that's one of the first things that any responsible city planner would do going into the future, is to bury, these exposed cables, because that's a great source of vulnerability. And certainly that's not done anywhere in the United States. And that's because they just don't invest the money. Local governments just don't invest the money to do it. But I think certainly one of the most important things that Mumbai must do going ahead is make sure that these hoardings and billboards are properly secured. It's probably not possible to move all of them, but they definitely need very strict regulation. 15 people died. It's a horrifying thing, and in the event of any kind of worse calamity, and, these calamities are going to happen, it's going to be much, much worse.
Right, Mr. Ghosh, my last question to you. Are you disappointed by the way our authorities react every time? Like even in this case, the Mumbai civic body is conducting an audit now after the tragedy.
I know. I mean, it's like closing the barn door after the horse is gone, and that's what we see all the time. But, the problem, especially in relation to Mumbai, is that there's very little planning for disaster management. While I was writing my book, I looked up all the plans that they have, and there's very little actual planning. And that's really one of the problems. After those big rain bomb disasters that Mumbai had, 10, 15 years ago, there were two of them in rapid succession. They decided to put in some measures, but those measures again have been basically naam ke waste measures, So, the other problem, of course, is that we now discover that this hoarding was illegal. So there was obviously some bribery involved. There was some sort of corruption all the way down the line. So this is another issue that we really have to confront, across India, not just Mumbai. that, the climate is changing and the climate is creating worse conditions. But in fact, one of the reasons why these disasters are happening so often is because of bad planning, bad management, and corruption, at the ground level. Just look at Chennai, all these flooding disasters that they've had year after year. Now, of course, the climate is changing around Chennai and elsewhere, so there are more and more rain bomb events. But the real problem is that Chennai is built in a floodplain, and all the drainage channels are being blocked up. And who are the people who are doing this blocking? They're mainly big construction companies, real estate companies, and they wield incredible power. Nobody can resist their power. Most of all, municipal authorities find themselves powerless to resist. So, in fact, Mumbai is singularly fortunate in that the Godrej family has preserved, like I think thousands of hectares of mangrove. But in terms of the municipality, it's proved itself repeatedly to be completely ineffective.
Right, Mr. Amitav Ghosh there, thank you so much for joining us here on NDTV and discussing this issue. Let me return now to our other guests, and let me first start with Tara Deshpande, who's an actor and writer living in Mumbai. Tara, you heard Amitav Ghosh there. He had predicted that such a tragedy was waiting to happen. He wrote about this in his book 8 years back, and here we are. As a concerned Mumbaikar, do you think authorities allowed these death traps to remain and, in a way, allowed this tragedy to happen?
Yes, I think if you look at the timeline of events, it's a horror show because there were so many opportunities and so many reasons to take this hoarding down immediately. The moment it went up, you have rules being flouted, right? The distance, there is a mandated distance between hoardings that has to be maintained. It was not maintained. Within a couple of weeks, this hoarding should have been pulled down. There have been so many different reasons to pull this down. It is shocking that it was allowed to stand for so long. This is a 100-foot hoarding. It's not a fly on the wall. You can see it every day. And the fact that security checks, safety measures were not conducted on such a large hoarding, especially hoarding that's illegal, where the person who put it up has not paid his arrears. I think there's about 6 crores in arrears that haven't been paid. How can you leave the safety and security measures of such a large hoarding, which is on a public space, to a person who is in arrears of 6 crores to the government? So yes, I think there have been many opportunities over the last 2 years to pull this hoarding down.
Right. Bharat Dabholkar, to you, coming from the advertising world, we know that Mumbai is a city known for its big hoardings, a popular mode being used for ad campaigns. But as a Mumbaikar today, would you say that such hoardings should be removed or reduced to the minimum? This was, of course, the case of an illegal hoarding. But otherwise as well, a lot of these hoardings are found to be unsafe.
No, it doesn't matter if it was illegal or legal. I think what is happening in Mumbai is a mushrooming of these large hoardings which are not required. I think some years ago, Delhi made a great law that they said you cannot have a hoarding beyond a certain size, maybe 10 by 10. I think what is happening in Mumbai is the corruption of the government, the BMC, and all their masters outside. Is maybe the hoarding guys take a permission for a 10 by 10 hoarding, 10 feet by 10 feet, and then make a 100 feet by 100 feet hoarding, and there's no one to check that because they've paid everybody down the line. And I think it's time now that Mumbai wakes up to this and says we can't have such large hoardings, we don't need such large hoardings. Even the advertisers who advertise in these hoardings should have some responsibility. They should check all these things. They should check if they've got permissions for this, what size was allowed, what size has been made on this site, and nobody gives a damn. I think it's high time that even advertisers said, if you don't have a legal document proving that you have a permission for this size of the hoarding, we will not advertise on this hoarding. Unless that happens, if there's money flowing in, there'll be money flowing out. There are no two ways. They'll keep paying money. The advertiser will keep advertising on these big hoardings. And I think we should follow a system by saying you cannot have a hoarding beyond a certain size, beyond a certain manageable size. I had even made one years ago. I was very involved in hoardings because I was handling Amul butter. And I had made a point that time to Mr. Vilas Rao Deshmukh, who was the chief minister, saying that every time anybody gives permission for a hoarding, why don't you tell the hoarding contractor that behind every hoarding, you must plant 2 trees which are higher than the hoarding height. Let there be some greenery. Don't give them permissions otherwise. And don't give these huge sizes of hoardings. Keep them to a minimum size. We can see all the messages that we need to see on a hoarding on a smaller size. But nobody gives a damn because there's too much money involved in all this. So there's nothing can be done unless all that is stopped.
Right. Let me bring in Shaina and see at this point. Ma'am, why is the government not acting on any officials? We can see that an FIR has been filed, but it is the usual suspect, the ad agency owner who's been named. What about the government officials who turned a blind eye, let this happen? In fact, the Mumbai civic body was aware of this illegal hoarding. Now they are issuing notices to the railways. Is that what the people of Mumbai deserve? You've heard them, which is the reason why I started the show by actually allowing them to speak. This is not what people living in the financial capital of the country expect.
So, Tanima, let me start by saying this kind of gross corruption and violation of flouting of laws has been seen by people who get certain kind of political insulation. I'm not going to sit here and judge on who it is, but I want to say this owner of this hoarding that had a permission which was 40 by 40 feet chose to make this 120 feet in cahoots with the powers that be in BMC as well as the administration. Look at his track record. His previous company was blacklisted. He has the audacity to come up with another company called Ego Advertising. He has 23 criminal cases against him, one of which is that of rape. So this is a serial offender who has manipulated the system, and yes, the administration should be taken to task. We are not going to, our Prime Minister leads by example in the crusade against corruption. And for those who have the power that be in the BMC, I don't even want to get into the name calling or the kind of blaming each other. But if you have a facility for a 40 feet hoarding and you choose to have corruption and money being given to different people just so that you can use 120 feet hoarding, this is a gross violation. And yes, heads need to roll.
Yes, ma'am, that was my question. Can we expect heads to roll, especially in these government agencies?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And please understand that the person who needs to be arrested is the person who runs the advertising firm, who has 23 criminal cases against him, who has political insulation from a particular defunct political party that has been giving him all kinds of facilities. Because if you're blacklisted in the BMC, we know that you cannot even get the tender, but you have flouted a new company just to manipulate the system. I do on guarantee that the Bharatiya Janata Party under the leadership of Devendra Fadnavis will not only take action but make sure lacunas in the system are also looked at and dealt with absolutely severely, because this is a tragedy for our Mumbaikars and such.
Right. Justice Kolse Patil, coming to you now, we see that the laws exist, of course. The specifications about what is the right parameter for of hoardings, they are already there in law. But the Mumbai civic body has clearly said that 40 feet high, anything above 40 feet high is illegal, but enforcement on the ground is missing. How can courts intervene, do you think? What justice can those families of 14 people expect in such cases? Justice Kolse Patil, that question is to you. What justice can these families expect?
That is the difficulty of our judiciary. When all agencies are corrupt, when all political parties are corrupt, when all sanctioning authorities they don't care for the life of people. Now, who will be responsible for these 15, 16 deaths? And this is only 20% operation, rescue operation. 80% operation is to be executed. So how many people died there? Forget about now any political party. We must introspect ourselves. We are all corrupt. And therefore, we are only blaming each other. If that holding is permitted by a particular police officer, now his successor will say that it is done by him. Was it not his duty to see after he takes over? But that will never happen, because हफ्ता कंटिन्यूज एंड हफ्ता कंटिन्यूज। मैं तो कहता हूँ कि जो लोग मरे उनके रिलेशन को समझने के लिए हम थोड़ा हिंदी में बोलना चाहिए कि ये हमारे एक पहला इंसिडेंट नहीं है। बम्बई में जो पानी आया था तो कई लोग मरे, बह गए। अभी मोरना में, गुजरात में जो नदी पर ब्रिज बना था गिर गया, लोग मर गए। अभी उड़ीसा में रेलवे का एक्सीडेंट हुआ, लोग मर गए। हजारों लोग मर रहे हैं और हम लोग सिर्फ चर्चा कर रहे हैं। ये जो होल्डिंग है इन डिस्प्यूट, ये लिम्का बुक ऑफ रिकॉर्ड में था
जी।
यहाँ तक उसकी मदद थी और ये 140/140 था होल्ड
जी।
जब हमारे अभी दोस्त ने बोला कि 10/10 ज्यादा से ज्यादा परमिशन देनी चाहिए या होनी चाहिए, यहाँ 140/140 मीन्स व्हाट? तो
Exactly.
ये कौन देखेगा? और ये जो देखना है वो सब अथॉरिटीज आर डीप एंड डम। ह्यूज स्ट्रक्चर्स when they are erected, now this is erected near petrol pump, so they cannot even take fast action.
Right.
If they use cutters, the petrol pump will blow up.
Exactly.
So,
in fact, even as we speak, the rescue operations are still.
At least, अरे मैडम, जब साइट चूज करते हैं तो ह्यूमन बीइंग का तो सोच उनके मन में चाहिए ना कि कौन सी साइट है ये, यहाँ एक्सीडेंट होगा तो क्या होगा। ये जो एंटिसिपेट हम नहीं करते, आप लोगों को, हम लोग, हमारे जैसे लोग पाते नहीं, मुझे मालूम है। लेकिन मैं अभी सब कंट्री को अपील कर रहा हूँ कि अरे मुसोलिनी ने देश बर्बाद किया था, हमारे से कई गुना जागा, हजारों पट हमारे से आगे है। हिटलर ने देश बर्बाद किया था, हमारे से कई गुना आगे है। जापान बर्बाद हुआ था, अमेरिका ने किया था, वो भी सब हमारे से आगे है। हम सभी पैरामीटर पे सबसे नीचे क्यों है? और हम क्यों नहीं खुद भी सोचते हैं कि हमारी क्या गलती है?
Several strong questions which are raised by this particular incident. Let me bring in Dr.
Yes.
Uday Prakash Varunjikar at this point. Mr. Varunjikar, you have actually gone to the courts.
I know you are not going to. Varunjikar is my friend, but we should go to the root of the matter. Don't call us and cut us.
I want to bring in his experience in terms of the kind of response that he gets from government agencies while fighting these cases in court. Mr. Varunjikar, let me go across to Mr. Varunjikar at this point. What has been the response of government agencies when you have raised the issue of rampant illegal hoardings in court?
Let me tell all viewers of this channel, there was an order which was passed by the division bench of the Bombay High Court, and overnight 5,000 illegal holdings were removed from Mumbai city. Only one order compelled the administration to remove 5,000 illegal holding in a night. That was the impact of an order. Why this order was passed? Because it was brought to the notice of the court that there is no such policy decision which was in existence at that point of time. Who gives the permission? There were no guidelines. What are the parameters? There were no guidelines. Who will be responsible? There were no guidelines. So therefore, policy decisions with reference to these holding was required to be framed. Honorable High Court directed, and now the government has framed the guidelines. Guidelines are for those municipal corporations. Guidelines are there for municipal councils. Now this is one part. There are three stakeholders. One is the owner of the land where this holding is erected. Second is the authority who gives the permission. And the third is the agency. Now what we have seen so far in this incident, the owner is scot-free. The authorities are not at all answerable. Authorities are not taking any call. And now the soft target seems to be that contractor who has erected this holding. I must tell that I am not holding a brief or I am not making any submission on behalf of that person. But equally, the other persons are also responsible. Now, the most important aspect is this, that how one can identify whether this holding is legal or illegal. This issue was also debated before the Honorable High Court. High Court has given a direction in the judgment saying that on each official holding, there has to be the particulars. Particulars of the person who is the owner of that land. Particular of the agency who has been granted to erect that particular holding. The period of that particular holding. In addition to this, the particulars as to how many times, how many watts, if it is to be illuminated at night, how many particulars, all those are required to be disclosed. You will find that even today, we are unable to identify whether the holding is legal or illegal. With the effort of all these advocates who came forward and became court commissioner, they were authorized by the High Court to bring attention of the civic authorities to illegal holdings. The toll-free number was also created. Website was also created. By way of an SMS, you can make a complaint to the civic authorities saying that at so-and-so place, there is an illegal holding which has been noticed. The statistic was also placed before the Honorable High Court, pointing out that all political parties, not one, all political parties are indulging into erection of illegal holdings. So therefore, the political parties were called upon to give their undertaking. I could see there are 2 or 3 political personalities in this show. Their respective party leaders have also given an undertaking before the Honorable High Court saying that they will discourage or they will take action against their party men. Nothing is happening. And the most important crucial aspect is, as on today, there is no mechanism to find out whether there is a structural stability of that holding. Because once the permission is given, there is no mechanism. Allow me to add 30 seconds. Take a case that there is some building which is dilapidated. The BMC comes, engineer comes, they conduct some tests and gives a report and then classify that building. Now, in respect of the holdings, whether the foundation is correct, whether there is a erosion, whether the foundation is capable of bearing how much load, all this will have to be tested again and again. There is no mechanism as on today because the persons are sitting in the office.
Right. Very important points actually that you have mentioned, and essentially the fact is that despite there is of course grey areas in terms of the rules and the regulations, but also even if policies are in place, there is a larger nexus which in a way covers up every time whenever such an incident takes place. I am running short of time in this discussion, but I'll go to Sanjay Jha for the last comments. Mr. Jha, where do you think the lethargy lies? Because we see this happening again and again. There's always a blame game, whether political or otherwise. Systemic problems always get buried. Where does the solution lie? Because I think Mumbai also has that capacity. The spirit of Mumbai keeps getting lauded all the time. But somewhere Mumbaikars have to stand up and say enough is enough.
Tanima, good evening. I'm glad you came to me before the program is over. I want to make just 2 short points. Number one, you said, where does the solution lie? It lies in the citizens having a much higher expectation from their public or political representatives. I'll give you a couple of examples. There are 14 innocent people who have died for no fault of theirs. This is a man-made tragedy. This is culpable homicide, and it is state-sponsored. And they're getting a compensation of rupees 5 lakhs each. Until and unless we as citizens are going to attribute an economic cost of rupees 5 lakhs for a human life, when the damages that the owner of the billboard who has not paid BMC 6 crores, it tells you as to how low our own expectations have become. So 5 into 14 is 70 lakhs as of today. I don't know how many other people will turn up as casualties. Point number one. Point number two. Just now, and let's address the elephant in the room, Tanima. I'm glad you're discussing this in your NDTV program. A very popular politician, nationally lionized by many, did a roadshow. I mean, there are people, as according to your report, who are battling for their lives under the debris. And you have a politician doing a roadshow. And I was told by somebody, it's just 3 kilometers away, chill, it's okay. I mean, this is the kind of the culture that we have accepted in our public life. We have zero expectations and we are compromised out of our own choice. My third point, I mean, China is a very dear friend, and she made a very eloquent pitch for change and justice. But China needs to tell the truth to the viewers of NDTV. For the last 2 years, there has been just a minute. Can I just speak without an interruption, if you don't mind, Tanima? Can I speak without an interruption?
Shaina, let him make his point, please. Let him finish his point, please. Yeah. Quickly.
Let me tell Shaina, there has been no BMC for the last 2 years. There is an administrator who is running BMC who reports to the government of Mr. Shinde and Mr. Devendra Fadnavis. And that administrator and the state government is directly responsible for inaction over the last 2 years. Let us not try to pussyfoot around and, flirt at the periphery with rhetoric.
All right, Sanjay
The
Jha,
reality.
since you have made that point directly to Shaina, I'll have to allow her to rebut you in a way, but we will have to close the discussion right after that. Shaina NC, you have 30 seconds, please.
I don't understand why this whataboutery. You have a hoarding homicide. You have the guilty who has manipulated the system, who has by corrupt practices, and we know the insulation that he has got from a particular household that has been in cahoots running the BMC. I don't want to get into that mudslinking. I just want to say lives have been lost. Please, let's rectify. And the only way it can be rectified is with process, where if there is an illegal hoarding, which is supposed to be X size and is 3X that size, then the owner of the hoarding in these kind of cases cannot get away scot-free.
And even as we speak, I would like to inform all of you that 2 more bodies have in fact been located from under the debris. 2 more bodies have been located and the officials are still working on the ground over there. There is a clear apprehension that few more could still be trapped underneath. Very, very tragic incident taking place there in Mumbai. We are still to see the other side of the story, but I thank all my guests for joining me on this very important discussion tonight.